everybody. I'm Josh Ellsworth with Stalls and Stalls Transfer Express, and I would like to formally welcome you to our Heat Press for Profit event that will be going on over the course of today, tomorrow, and even into Friday. I know we have people that will be joining and have registered from all over the world, and we're excited to educate you over the course of these 3 days, all with the goal of helping you to start or grow your t-shirt business. Actually, if you haven't noticed the theme, we want to give you the playbook to start or grow your t-shirt business by giving you specific instructions. Now, we call this event Heat Press for Profit. I want you to think about why we call it that. You guessed it. We are designing our content around entrepreneurs in your business and how to deliver profit to the bottom line. Now, as we go throughout today, there are a ton of educational sessions. I'm going to walk through those for you in a little bit later in the presentation. But I first want you to get acquainted with the platform that you're watching within. You can chat it into me live and into a moderator that we have helping me today, Shauna. So as you're watching the classes today, know that all of these are completely and 100% live. So whatever happens, happens, but we designed it that way so they could be a little bit more interactive. So as presenters, we're counting on you to bring your questions. As things come up in the presentation that are relevant to that presentation, make sure you chat those in. As you click on the agenda in the top of your internet window on top of the browser, you will see all of the sessions that are scheduled for today. Now, some of those sessions do have limited seating for the live. So you'll want to make sure you add those to your schedule as quickly as possible and plan to attend. If for any reason you can't make a live session, know that the recording will be posted about 30 minutes after the session concludes. So if you miss something or you want to go back and rewatch something, it'll be open to you over the next 3 days. And so if you'll notice, nothing is on the schedule for Friday. So we will give education today and tomorrow through the hours of the evening, also some Q&A sessions to make sure you get all of your questions answered. But on Friday, the idea is that you can schedule meetings with our speakers and our experts. So as you are thinking through the sessions, as you're thinking through the content that's been presented, please do take advantage of that. Schedule a one-on-one meeting. It's a Zoom meeting like this. You can hop on video or stay off video if you're more comfortable that way. And you can ask specific questions for your business to finalize any purchase decisions or just to ask guidance and advice. If you're not purchasing anything, that's fine as well. Now, this is a buying event. And so we've created some show specials to help you to be able to save on some of our most popular equipment. And we've also put that equipment into packages. So you can also navigate in the top of your screen and download our show special information and make sure you get the equipment at a good price for you. I will say heat presses are in more demand than ever, so please be patient on the turn time on anything that you purchase. Heat presses are currently running about 8 to 12 weeks as far as delivery goes, depending on the unit. So we're helping you to plan in advance. I'm confident that you'll consume a ton of content, but you'll have plenty of planning and ideas and things to do as you wait for your heat press to arrive. So again, I just want to welcome you in. I encourage you to make the most of the next 3 days, and we are so excited to have you. My name is Josh Ellsworth, and I've been educating apparel decorators like you for over 20 years. It's hard to believe that I've been doing it for 20 years, but I've really been enjoying it more over the last 10 years because of a little place called YouTube. And so we create a lot of educational content on our Stalls TV YouTube channel that give you advice 2, 3, 4 times a week. We publish little small videos that help you grow in your business. All of these videos will actually be published on our channel sometime in the future as well. The name of my session is Making Money with Heat Printing. So yes, we're going to focus in on the profit side of heat printing. And the entire event is designed around that profit side. And so what I want to do is I'm going to walk you through what I think are the most important things as you plan your business, as you refocus your business to be able to generate maximum profit. Does that sound good to you? I hope so. I'm super excited to bring this content to you. So now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to walk through some key considerations when we're talking about profitability in heat printing. Number one, start with your customer. Now, I preach this time and time again. Nothing else matters if you don't have a clear view of who your customer is or who you want your customer to be. The reality is, in any business, there are good customers, there are great customers, there are bad customers. Yes, I know we've debated it over the years that it is okay to fire a customer, but I think the better idea is not to attract that customer in the first place. And believe it or not, by defining your target market and your ideal customer, you can start the right way from day one. And so this is an absolutely critical thing to do. If you're attending this event, and actually I just talked to a lady last week that's a couple hours away from here that I invited to this event. Believe it or not, she ended up with multiple pieces of equipment without a really clear view on what she was going to make and who she was going to sell to. Honestly, I don't think you should be making any equipment decision until you decide who you're going to sell to and who that ideal customer is. Now, odds are you have some idea of this, you have some connection to some industry or market vertical, and you probably have a pretty good idea of who your customer is or who you want your customer to be. Once we have that understanding, then we can really dive in and understand what that customer purchases and how we can create value for that customer. If you just try to be everything to everybody, what you're going to experience in your business is a lack of profit. You'll be a generalist. And what happens with the generalist is they get on a race to the bottom very quickly because people will just shop on price because you are not creating any relevant and unique value. So as you think about this, and we have our idea of our target customer in mind, and what I'd like you to do is if you brought a notebook, go ahead and just jot down your top target customer. If you have a few different market verticals, I would recommend you write down, up to 3 target customers. Now, when we think about verticals, what I like to think about is what defines a new market segment is they value a different part of the offer. And so in a lot of businesses, you will have what's called a value proposition. A value proposition is basically how I bring unique value to my target customer. How am I different than everybody else? Once you start to wrap your mind around creating unique value for your target customer or customer segments, then you can really move into creating an offer and making investment decisions in your business. For instance, if you decide that you want to have a retail storefront, you should go into that retail storefront in that lease because it's a commitment that adds to overhead with a clear understanding of how that lease, how that retail storefront makes you unique and how you reach your customers. How is that going to make you better than everybody else? How is it going to allow you to command a higher price point? So hopefully you're seeing the idea here is we want to start with a customer and then we start to think about that customer. What brings that customer joy? What are the pain points for that customer when it comes to doing their job or participating in their sport or organizing orders for their particular employee appreciation event, whatever the market is? What are their tasks in a day? And what are the joy points in those tasks that you can create through branded apparel? And what are the pain points that you can solve with how they potentially order branded apparel? Now you'll notice a triangle on the screen and you'll see 3 different points on that triangle. You'll see fast, good, and cheap, right? I hate the word cheap, but I wanted to put it on here for effect, like low price, right? And so you can pick to be a couple of these things, but you can't be all of those things. It's a basic principle of business. If you try to be the best in all of those things, you just won't be able to achieve it. So I'd like you to think about your target customer and how you're going to approach the market. And for me, I love to gravitate towards the good or the high quality side of the triangle because then you can command a higher price. And I also look to provide value in how fast we can deliver a product because that will command a higher price point, which will command more profit. And you won't be focused just on doing work for the sake of doing work at low margin business. Actually, you won't accept that low margin business or bring in that customer in the first place. So I would challenge you, take those customers that you've identified now and think about how is my business going to create unique value for that customer? We're going to talk a little bit in a moment about calculating costs, and we'll want everything that goes into the cost calculation equation to make sure it is working into creating value. If it's not, you need to get rid of it. That is going to help you be a profitable business from the start or as you continue to grow. Hopefully that makes sense to you. The third thing that I want to challenge you to do is to not only create a message, this is your story that you're going to go out to be able to attract that customer and really have something resonate with them, but clarify your message. And clarification is key because that takes something that we start with that's an idea, and then it really refines it. And so if you haven't refined your offer over time, I'm going to encourage you to refine it after this event. The simpler we can make our offer, the better we're going to be able to not only win business so a customer gets to a decision, but also scale the business. And we all desire to scale a business, don't we? We want to take it from this small thing and make it some big, lofty dream and goal. And there are different checkpoints along that journey to becoming who you want to be from a business category. Clarifying and refining your message to your customer to make sure it resonates, make sure they can understand it and move to a yes or no decision is going to be absolutely critical so we're not wasting time. Some ideas on how we can create and clarify our message is something as simple as a price grid, right? Being able to have documented pricing or pricing to rely on as we go to a customer is really going to help me to be quick, easy, and help them understand everything out front. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The fourth and final thing, once we understand who our customer is, we've created unique value, we've clarified our message, now we need to be able to connect that offer, connect that story, that message to as many target customers as possible. This is called advertising or marketing, right? We want to get that message out in front of those customers. There are a lot of different ways to do this, everything from old-fashioned prospecting and cold calling to more automated and efficient methods like showing up when people search under certain terms. But you can't even move to this point of advertising unless you're really refined, because I don't think you can justify spending money on advertising until you're quite sure that you have the right customer, the right offer, and the right message to move them to conversion. I wanted to get this out there first and upfront because it is so critical for any business in any industry, and you need to understand it before you just get excited about everything you'll be able to make over the next couple of days and start buying stuff. I want you to have a successful business, one that stands the test of time, one that helps you grow over time and achieve your goals. And you need to have cash flow, you need to have profit for those things to come true. So if you're about making money in a business, this event is certainly in for you. Welcome to Heat Press for Profit. So our approach to help. Two of the big things that I think are important in my conversations over the last 20 years with apparel decorators are capability and also confidence. The reality is when you look at capability, the heat presses that we're going to talk about today and over the next couple of days, they're capable of a lot of different things. They can print a lot of different looks. They can execute on a lot of different products and really allow you to go to customers with a ton of capability as far as what you can sell. Confidence, I think, sometimes becomes the missing part of the equation. How can we make you a more confident apparel decorator? Getting to the right product right away, being able to provide a price right away, knowing that you can accommodate an item right away, and ultimately winning with your target customers day to day. That is the confidence that we want you to have. So you attending this event or watching this video afterwards is the start of building that confidence. It's just going to help to build this foundation of we're doing things the right way. This entire itinerary today has been built to give you not only understanding of capability, but also an understanding of being confident in your decision. So Jenna is going to lead off directly after this class with Heat Pressing 101, where she is going to cover the basic fundamentals of applying an accurate heat transfer. You may have guessed it, but it is time, temperature, pressure. If you've attended any of our events, you know that time, temperature, pressure, it's a critical recipe for making sure this heat press can apply stuff accurately. If you don't have the appropriate time, if you don't have the appropriate temperature, if you have too little pressure, you stand to have risk in the process. And that's the last thing we want, is for this garment to go out, go in the laundry, and then start to come off or crack or have some result that's not intended because we didn't follow the basic instructions. And so we felt it was very important to reset on the basic instructions with tips and tricks to make sure you're executing with time, temperature, and pressure accurately every time. Why? It's going to create repeat customers. It's going to create word of mouth advertising. If we're creating quality goods, we're delivering them fast, and they're lasting for customers, they're going to advance their brand in their particular discipline, whether that's in business, sports, whatever it may be. We all want to advance our brand, and you're going to get repeat customers when you help them do that with long-lasting results. Okay, now I want to go through the rest of the schedule and how we've set up today before I give you some tips on calculating cost and setting selling prices. So let me go back to share my screen and let's show that to you. When you look at the agenda, you will see some what we call start to finish classes. The idea around these classes is that there are 6, we have different ways to customize a t-shirt or categories that we've come up with your heat press. This will help you to understand as much as we can possibly pack in about a given category. So if you attend the digital screen print transfer class, you will understand all of the formulas available to you in digital screen print transfers, where they fit into your business and why you would select one versus the other. So it can become overwhelming pretty quickly in the start to finish classes. But if you see that one of these categories is where you're going to want to be for decorating apparel for your business, these classes are going to be awesome because it's going to teach you everything that's available within the category so you can become the product expert. That's our start to finish classes. We're also going to have the getting started classes. As you'll see, these are a little bit more software or equipment focused. And the getting started classes are going to help you understand whether or not that particular piece of equipment, that particular piece of software is a wise investment to your business. Now, the first one, Artwork Made Easy, is going to help you create art. The Vinyl Designer, that's actually a free software, but it does cost you something to do all of these things. It costs you time, which is a valuable resource in your business. So while it may be free in some of these cases, we want to step through exactly what that product does, whether it's a designer or whether it's a heat press or a vinyl cutter. And we want to compare the options for you and make sure it's a good fit for you to spend the time and energy on and make it a part of your business. And then lastly, one of my favorite are the playbook classes. And we're going to lead off. This is a large part of the schedule today. This is what I consider our core classes. And so when you look at this, you see basically 6 different product SKUs or product assortment that you could potentially offer your customers. Now, there are a lot more that you could add to this list, but we think these 6 represent the majority of the revenue opportunity with any particular customer. And so in these classes, you're going to understand not only how to decorate items in this category, but some of our favorite finishes to decorate those items. And so what we expect that you will see is you will go into the headwear class, for instance, and you'll get a big understanding, a really in-depth understanding of how to decorate hats accurately, some of our favorite finishes for hats. Undoubtedly, you'll come out of that class highly interested in dimensional logos. And so then we will follow that up with a start to finish class. I believe those are tomorrow or later tonight on dimensional logos. So you can understand all of the choices in dimensional logos, how to order them, how to price them, how to purchase them to really implement that as a part of your business. And then lastly, you can go into the getting started classes on a heat press and really get an in-depth knowledge of what heat press do I need to apply dimensional logos accurately. Okay, so you see how this all builds. We're laying the foundation and then we're building on it. So at the end of the day, we hope you will have not only the capability, but you will have the confidence to go the direction you want for your target customer in your business. So here's what I would like to cover right now, because you're going to get overwhelmed with the amount of choices and options under the umbrella of heat printing, because there's really so much you can make. And the key to starting with profit is understanding the right decoration method for the particular job. Now, this particular topic is close to my heart because it's probably been about 3 years now that I was sitting in a small conference or workshop with some of the largest contract decorators that are in our industry, that have automatic screen printing presses, that have many 12-head embroidery machines, many single-head embroidery machines, that have direct-to-garment printing, that have many heat presses, that basically have access to any particular way to print a job. And these were the business owners or the production managers that were sitting in this meeting, about 6 to 7 shops at all. We were in Arizona and had a couple days together in our Chandler facility, which is just outside of Phoenix. One of the top challenges that came out of the event is, look, we understand we really need to be investing more into heat printing because what it provides. It helps me to print to order. It helps me to accommodate the low quantity runs. It helps me to have unique finishes. And really, it just helps me to solve a lot of challenges in my business and pair up with e-commerce technology and where I want to grow my business. But look, what's so challenging is we have to process so much to decide what transfer do I use. And so we set out as a group to solve this problem. And the grid that I'm about to show you, some of you, if you've been watching a lot of our content, may have seen this before, but I love this grid. It's called our what to use when grid, and it really simplifies the selection process of heat transfers. To do what? To drive the most profit, to make you confident in your selection, and also make you highly profitable when you decorate this way. So let me show you a peek at that chart here. So I'm going to share my screen one more time with you. And I love this. It's painfully simple. So that's the way things should be to help you arrive at quick decisions and get the right product. So we have the heat transfer guide of what to use when. You'll see this in other classes as we move throughout the day, but I want to cover the basics. First, let's start with the 4 technologies that are inside of the grid. We have CAD-CUT heat transfer vinyl, which is rolls of actually polyurethane film that you can load onto a vinyl cutter to be able to cut out names, numbers, and other logos and designs. Very popular way to decorate. Many of you are coming from this with a desktop cutter, and it's how you entered the industry or why you're even here. But know that CAD-CUT heat transfer vinyl is also a product that can be cut and weeded for you and sent to you ready to heat press. We also, if you look directly to the right of that in orange, we have something that's called CAD Prints full color transfers. Now, this is in parentheses a print cut technology. So basically, it's heat transfer vinyl that you can print on to be able to get multiple colors all on a single layer. And so again, you can order these already done for you, ready to apply, or you can invest in a printer cutter and be able to do these yourself. I will say the investment in a printer cutter is quite a bit more than the investment in a vinyl cutter. So sometimes people will order out for this while bringing their own vinyl cutting in-house if you want to do that and make stuff yourself. Move down to the green category, Plastisol screen printed transfers. This is probably one of the fastest growing out there in the market. And the reason why is people are finally realizing that they can screen print with their heat press. This is actually screen print Plastisol ink that's laid down onto a carrier sheet that you can order out and just finish with your heat press. Actually, it's how the shirt I'm wearing was made today, with a Plastisol screen printed transfer. And I'm going to go through some of the top choices here in a moment. And the last one on the grid is a digital screen printed transfers. We call it UltraColor. Now, this brings all of the advantages of screen printed transfers with making sense for large quantity, but with the benefit of having many different colors in the design and not driving cost up. All right, are you confused enough yet? Maybe that's you. And that's why we created the grid. And so when we look at the grid, it's very simple. We've done the work for you. So all you need to do is look at how many colors are in your logo across the top of the grid. Is it 1? Is it 3? Is it 6 or more? And what is the garment quantity that you want to order down the left side of the grid? Find out where those 2 lines intersect, and you get to the optimal way that you should order your transfer. Does that make sense? So if we have a single color design where I need a quantity of 1, there's no better way than heat transfer vinyl. If that's a 6 color design where I need a quantity of 1, it goes to a print cut full color transfer. Not that you can't use one of these products outside of where it's recommended, but to generate maximum profit and arrive at the best choice, you're best to follow this grid. Now, there's a follow-up step to this, and this is really where our start to finish classes will come in, but I want to give you a quick preview of that. And that's right here. Is we get to what product do I need once I get into that section of the grid. You can download this full presentation. It's under the files within this Pathable platform where most of you are watching here today. So you can definitely have this and have a quick reference to it as well as the complete presentation. But this will give you kind of your top selection. So if we're doing a single piece order that's in one color and I end on the heat transfer vinyl blue part of the grid, what product should I use out of heat transfer vinyl? Here we'll recommend a couple top finishes or top product formulas for the job. In this case, if I'm going to cotton, poly, or a tri-blend, I will order the UltraWeed brand product from Stahls that you see available at stahls.com. If I want to apply to a nylon jacket, then I move over to Gorilla Grip. So hopefully you get the point. The idea of this is to maximize your profit and to make you not only a capable apparel decorator, but a confident apparel decorator. All right. process all that for a second. I'm going to take a quick drink before we move to the next thing. I'm going to need your mind sharp on this section of the presentation. Here's where we're going to go into a little more detail. So just to backtrack real quick, the goal, of course, is to have you make more money in your heat printing business. We outlined the 4 tips to get started with the very high level view on how to approach the business, starting with the customer and then moving through the subsequent steps. The other way I think you can make more money in your heat printing business is really by selecting the right transfer for the job every time. And we just gave you a way in order to do that. Now, of course, once you get to the right transfer for the job, then there's a certain cost associated with that transfer. So in order to make the most profit, we have to have a very clear understanding of how to calculate cost and how to set selling prices. So this is another thing that I felt was super important for you to understand up front as we go through this and kind of set the stage for the rest of the next 3 days. And that is calculating accurate costs from day one, being our way to maximize profit. Shauna, just to make sure I'm not losing anybody, I want to just open it up to see if there's any questions before I move to this section, which is a little more detailed.
You're all caught up on questions. We're answering them. There's nothing specific for you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I want you to write this down, or at least if you printed out the presentation, make sure you earmark this page. This is your cost equation. And so on this cost equation, this is what goes in to finding your total cost for the thing. What I've experienced in this industry is a lot of people miss certain elements of the cost equation. What that does is it leaves them short on profit, and they wonder at the end of the month or the end of the year why they don't have more money in their business bank account. If you miss it too often and too much, it quickly leads to out of business, or you just find that, hey, I can't make money in this business, I'm going to do something else. So let's assume you found the right customer, you've clarified your offer. We still need to hit the right price to be able to charge, and that starts with the right cost. Here's my cost equation. Number one thing that goes into calculating cost is your direct labor and materials. And so if we think about it from the sense of building a house, we have the workers that are completing the building project, and we have the lumber, the nails, et cetera, that go into building the house. That is the direct labor, the manufacturing labor that goes into making the thing. In this case, the thing is a t-shirt, right? So that'd be your time for heat pressing the shirt, as well as any other tasks you complete that goes into manufacturing the t-shirt, as well as the cost of the products that go into creating the t-shirt in whatever particular way you decorate. Now we need to add that direct costs, as we call them, which is labor and materials, to our indirect costs, which is more commonly known as overhead. I'll go through how to do this, but I want you to understand that these are the 3 elements that go into calculating total cost. Our labor, our materials, and our overhead go into the total cost for your apparel. Now, I want to break down the labor and materials calculation for you on this simple example. The image on the left is a 6-7 color transfer that was created from a digital screen print transfer from our Ultra Color product, because that's how we would do this for the amount of shirts that we want to create, in this case 50, by following our what to use when grid that I showed you, right? I know I would land on this product. And so to calculate your labor, first off, if you want to grow your business and you want to replace yourself, you have to pay yourself, because I don't know anybody that's going to work in your business for free for a very long time. And so from day one, you want to establish a rate for the heat press work that you're doing, or whomever is doing. You want to make sure you are calculating that into your cost and paying for that particular task. And so in this particular case, I like, if you look at the top of the grid, I like to go to the minutes to complete multiplied by the cost per minute as the basic way to get to cost. And so if you've heat pressed a shirt before, you know a couple minutes a shirt is probably pretty typical for any heat transfer application. We load the shirt, we preheat, we position the design, we press, and then we peel on the press or move the shirt off the press to peel, depending on whether we have a hot or cold peel product. But a couple minutes a shirt is what we're going to use for our example here. It's pretty basic. single placement application on this t-shirt. And so if I have 2 minutes to decorate this shirt and I'm paying the heat press labor $10 per hour, I'm going to calculate that costs just short of 17 cents in labor per minute. If I take that labor rate divided by 60 minutes in an hour, multiply 2 by my cost of labor per minute, and I get about 33 cents in labor. So if this had 3 applications on it, you can pretty much triple that labor rate. So the point here is you want to make sure that you're calculating labor as part of the equation. If you're cutting and weeding, that's labor too. And so if you're doing a heat transfer vinyl design, you need to pay yourself for every part of the process and calculate that total cost. And you'll start to see why outsourcing becomes such a good model to be able to have stuff that just comes in ready to apply. That's why we're seeing the growth in a lot of our transfer services. Next, we land to the landed cost of material. Landed basically means freight included because it costs something to get it to you. And so in this case, we have the cost to get the blank garment in, and we have the cost of the heat transfer with the inbound freight. If you look at the sample on the bottom of the screen, what you'll see is 50 of this style shirt costs $1.98 from when I have a wholesale account from a wholesale company like Sanmar or SNS Activewear, or Alpha Broad, or any wholesale company that you set up with a tax ID, which is a good idea if you were in this business for profit and not just for fun and a hobby. And then we have the freight. So ultimately the shirt cost me $2.28. Transfers are about $3.15 a piece, which is really low for that number of colors in a design, plus the freight equals $3.39. So yes, you guessed it, we'll add the cost of the transfer and the t-shirt together to get $5.67. We add our labor and we have a total direct cost. Our direct labor and materials for manufacturing the good is going to be $6 in this instance. Hopefully you have a good understanding of how to calculate this. The important thing is make sure you're investing your time to calculate this. Next, let's move to that indirect expense category, which is overhead, right? And so I put the quote on the screen. I've used it before. If your building is free, we're moving in. Overhead is sometimes the forgotten cost. And again, it leaves you lacking on your cash flow and your profit goals if you don't include it. So I've created a quick brainstorm list, and the list can probably go on, of things that fall into the overhead bucket. Everything from your administrative salaries, sales, marketing, depreciation, insurance, property taxes, rent, utilities. There's a big list that falls into this overhead bucket. It's basically the expense for getting the sale and running the business is going to fall into overhead. Now, overhead, it's tough to figure out how to apply that to every job that you do. I'm going to show you a way to do that you can do that for your business. So if you look over on the right, I like to establish an overhead rate, or a percentage that I'm going to be able to apply to every sale in my business based on how much business flows through, how many sales flow through my business. And so the formula for that is pretty easy. It's just your indirect expenses, your overhead over X period of time, divided by your direct expenses over that same period of time. And so you may not have good accounting and good history on this. I would encourage you to do this, at least track this for a typical month. If you can track it for a quarter, half a year, a full year, the longer period that you can track it and run the equation for, a typical business period, the more accurate the rate is going to be for your business. But start somewhere. Start with tracking it for a month. And so the example shows that if my indirect expenses over a typical month were $1,500 by the time I added up all my utilities, my rent, et cetera, and my direct expenses that I used to manufacture goods over the same period, including my manufacturing labor, was $10,000, I would simply take the $1,500 divided by 10,000, and I would get my overhead rate of 0.15 or 15%. Okay. It's a pretty easy calculation, pretty easy math to do, as long as you compile the numbers, which is the most difficult part. But I'm going to challenge you to do that. It is very important for the success of your business to make sure you have accurate costs. After I have the overhead rate on this particular t-shirt, which cost me $6, all I want to do is multiply my direct cost for that particular job by my overhead rate, and that gives me my overhead amount. So $6 times my 15%, it's going to be 90 cents in overhead that I'm going to apply to that job. Hopefully that makes sense. This is how my cost equation pans out on this particular t-shirt job. But when you have these numbers, when you have established them for your business, you can make sure you're paying yourself. You can make sure that you are incorporating all the costs, and we can start with a good factual understanding of what it costs to make something, so we can even start to think about what you should sell it for. Because of course, we can't get a clear view of profit unless we understand what something costs and what we can sell it for. And so, as you might have guessed, as we approach the conclusion here of our presentation, I open up for questions. We're going to talk about how much you can sell it for. What should you sell it for? There are a lot of methods to approach selling prices. They all have their pros and cons, their strengths and their weaknesses. The statement I put on the board is probably easier said than done, but really, to maximize profit, what do we want to do? We want to charge as much as the customer will pay. And so that, I've seen that said, how much will the market bear is another way that's been stated, but I definitely recommend that you approach your pricing not from a cost plus standpoint or a cost multiplied by standpoint, but really first from a market point of view. If you have a good understanding and you've done the work so far to identify your target customer and you understand that customer, you should, and you've created unique value, you should know that you can charge more than the next guy because you are bringing something special to that client. It's your wheelhouse. It's what you've chosen to specialize in. You've heard the term niche and get rich. It doesn't have to be a small niche. You just need to bring unique value to whoever that target customer is and make sure that pulls through on the price that they're willing to pay. If you're getting a lot of price pressure, I'm going to say you haven't done a good job of creating unique value and really understanding your customer. But let's assume you've done that. Then we can actually have the conversation about how much a customer will pay. One method to approach pricing is the Keystone method. In the Keystone method, we would basically double the cost of goods to get a wholesale price and usually multiply the wholesale price to get a retail price. There are a lot of benefits about the Keystone method. It's quick, it's easy, everybody can do it. But again, I think in some cases, the Keystone method will either leave you short on profit or overcharging in the market when you would be very happy doing that job otherwise. Let me show you a couple examples of how that pulls through. So this is a real life job. I love showing this example because that's me and my family. We bought these t-shirts and I helped a small business owner here in Uniontown create these t-shirts right in the middle of, or the beginning of the COVID pandemic. It was a fundraiser shirt to raise funds where a percentage of the profit kicked back to local businesses that had their door closed that helped them to pay the bills and pay their employees. And so what we see here, there were about 100 shirts sold on this particular program. It's a small town, and so 100 shirts across a small town was a nice little kickback to the businesses that were represented, and it had a lot of other benefits. But when I look at what it costs to make, the goof-proof transfer, which is our screen print plastisol transfer that would make sense for one color 100 shirts on our What to Use When grid, right? See how all this ties together? Costs $1.89 with freight. The t-shirt itself landed cost $1.79. I calculated my labor, applied my overhead, and my total cost to make this shirt was $4.43. If I followed the simple wholesale retail method, what am I going to get to? I'm going to be selling this wholesale for $8.86 or retail for $17.72. But how much will the customer pay? In this case, we stood up an online web store through Spirit Sale, and which gave more of a retail type buying experience. But rather than go to market with $17.72, we felt quite confident based on knowing the market and the cause that they would actually pay $20. And so by charging the $20, the amount the customer would pay, we generated an extra $228 in profit on this job alone. And we produced that job once everything came in less than 2 hours. So would you like to make an extra $228 in profit on 2 hours of your time? I don't know anybody that would say no to that question. And you can see the total profit for the job was quite good, which allowed us to accomplish the goal of kicking some nice money back to the businesses that participated. So you get the idea. The Keystone method, while easy, you want to make sure that you are adjusting that for what the market will bear, what the customer is willing to pay. You need to have a good sense of your customer to do that. One more example that kind of shows the other way, right? Do you know anybody that would pay $138 for this backpack? This is an actual job that I did. I ran a little side hustle for a while. These are laid out on my kitchen counter, but we completed these 50 backpacks for a local dance school. Now, there are all different ways to decorate a shirt. Under normal circumstances at the quantity of 50, I should be going with the screen print transfer, but we wanted a special feature here. That's actually a reflective pink design. And so when the dancers are walking out into the parking lots in the night hours after class dismisses in the fall, they're going to get a little bit of visibility by wearing their backpack. So a special feature. And so you can break the what to use when grid if you're going for a special finish is the point I wanted to make there. But for me to cut these myself, it's heat transfer vinyl, $1.16 with material and waste. The backpack costs $28. Labor, about 5 minutes per bag to cut weed and heat apply. My overhead, you can see how overhead makes a big impact on a high priced item, right? Because it's applying as a percentage to the overall cost, and the backpack costs more than a t-shirt. My total cost is $34.51. If I sold that wholesale, use the keystoning method, you'll see the pricing there, $69 and $138. We actually knew the customer was willing to pay $54 for this. Okay. If we charged more, we probably wouldn't have sold nearly as many backpacks on this particular sale. We were very happy making $20 in profit on every backpack we printed and completing this job to generate $1,000 for the business in 4 hours. So I hope you are getting the idea here of what I'm trying to present to you. We need to be smart about our business. We need to plan our business. We can't limp into it and do it halfway and expect success. I wanted to lay this foundation down for you because if you're trying to limp into it right now, I'm going to encourage you to take a couple steps back and be a little bit more strategic, because why we do these events for free, what we're doing is we're trying to make you successful as an entrepreneur. Our model is if you're successful, you're going to buy a lot of transfers, you're going to buy a lot of vinyl, you're going to upgrade your heat press, you're going to be with us for a long time, which means the lifetime customer value, you to us, is going to be so much greater than if you show up on a list next year that says, hey, this customer went out of business, right? And they're not purchasing anymore. That's not our goal at all. So what you'll find throughout this event and the way we approach the business is we go all in on making you successful. Hopefully you've gathered some tips and tricks here to set the right stage, and you can approach the rest of today's classes to just complete the picture for your optimal customer. With that, I'm going to open it up for some questions to Shauna. We have about 8 minutes left together.
Okay, Josh, I'd just like to remind everybody before we go to questions that the files are located in the Pathable site at the top of the page, so they can download the grids and the presentation. And then the first question is from Johnny. He wants to know where advertising, fuel, telephone would come in on the expense side in the formula.
Advertising, fuel, telephone would be indirect expenses that would fall into overhead.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty much if it doesn't go into the manufacturing of the actual good, you're going to see that fall over into the indirect expense category.
All right, the next question is from Patricia. How do you do the overhead rate when sales are very sporadic?
Yeah, it's a good question, Patricia. Thanks for asking it. So it's very tough to establish the overhead rate until you have a typical month of business, right? And so what I would do is I would try to do it based on an industry average. What we find is for most small businesses that operate out of their home, they should have a relatively low overhead rate. So perhaps you want to start with something around 10 to 15%. For a lot of larger businesses, as you start to get more of a sales force, more of a marketing budget, and more buildings, bricks and bodies, basically that's overhead, that rate usually starts to increase unless you're really seeing the top line sales decrease. So a lot of larger businesses will typically see overhead rates that are higher than that 10 to 15%. And so I appreciate the question. I would recommend you start somewhere and at least calculate something for overhead to make sure you're covering that aspect. Worst case scenario is you just make more profit. Always overestimate instead of underestimate, but it's so critical to make it a part of your equation as you grow. Hopefully that helps. What other questions?
Yep, the next question is from Deborah. She said, how did you apply the decal to the backpack? There were many layers and the area that you put it on looked small and narrow.
Yeah, so good. So you're going to get a lot of this knowledge throughout today, but just to start is capability and confidence, right? So on the capability side, when we approach the design of our heat press, one of the things that we strive to do is allow you to print more on that heat press than any other heat press on the market. It's a guiding principle. And so when you invest in a Stahl's heat press, a couple of the key things that you'll see are right at what I call the heart of the machine, where you load your item. And at the heart of every Stahl's machine, you will see an interchangeable base attachment that you can unlock and swap off to a smaller size. And we carry a lot of different sizes. By going to that smaller size, it will allow you to load small pouches and different items that you'll want to sell more accurately, with getting rid of the zippers, the seams, the buckles, to make sure you get accurate pressure. So that cantilever design that we have here on the press, as well as our fusion press and many others that you'll see throughout today from different home offices, you'll see different styles, as well as the interchangeable platens, makes that possible. Now, if you're not at the point where you can jump into a heat press, we have accessories that you'll see throughout today, like heat printing pillows and something called Print Perfect pads, or even mouse pads, that will help to raise that print area to be able to press it. On this particular backpack example, I actually used a combination of the two. I used a 6x10" platen, which was small and narrow. That allowed me to just reach the front pouch print area with the Landsea design. Let me just share my screen one more time so we can all look at the design together. And I can point out parts of it. Yeah, so there are two areas here. This front pouch, this was done just single color, pink reflective. I was able to fit that 6x10 platen, unzip the pouch, and with the cantilever design of the auto clam, which is the one behind me that I own, just load that on and reach it right away. Now, it's tough to see on this photo, but there's this like super small area on top. Everybody at the dance school is carrying these bags, so the name was a really important part of the job for us that we had to do. And so dropping this name on this really narrow area, that was challenging because there were zippers and straps and buckles there that were going to be tough. So actually what I did is we loaded that onto the 6x10 platen, but I also put a heat press pillow underneath it. And the heat press pillow, in combination with the platen, allowed me to kind of load on and get rid of most of the bulk and really isolate that print area, and the seams would sink down into the pillow to give me an even pressure. So there's a tool for every job, but I feel confident saying with pillows, pads, a Hotronix press, and platens, subscribe to our Stahl TV YouTube channel, watch the classes today. You will know how to hit what's unachievable by other decorators. And that's a way you're going to be able to provide unique value to whoever your market is.
Okay. The next question, Joel asked if platens come with the heat press.
Yeah, so we have, for this event, we are running we're treating this like a trade show, which is great because you get the best deals and you get our best packages. So if you look under our specials, you will see some equipment packages that include platens and some accessories that you need. Normally, if you just buy the heat press by itself, you have to add the platens, but they are a good investment. And my recommendation is if you're starting with your first press, don't buy that press without getting the 11x15" attachment. Always buy a 16x20 press if you can afford it. Get the 11x15 attachment and get the 6x10 attachment. There are other ones you can add that have value, but those two are musts in my opinion.
Okay, Dawn asks, is the home base more of guerrilla heat transfer business and the retail price somewhere below a brick and mortar business?
I'm not sure I totally understand it. So on the Keystone method, we had the wholesale and the retail. So the wholesale would be as if you're selling to somebody else that needs to mark it up and sell it again. So a good example of that would be selling to, let's say, a restaurant that is going to have their branded gear at the front of the restaurant, or have a store like Hard Rock Cafe does inside of the restaurant, and they expect to make a profit. You would sell to them at wholesale, they would sell at retail in that scenario. So that's the basic method. You approach those folks, you go in with a line sheet, say these are the pricing, these are suggested retail price, and you work together to land the business. I wouldn't vary it based on home versus storefront. I would charge as much as your customer will pay, so you can maximize your profit regardless of where you're making it. Even better if If you can do the same quality of work from home, it just means your overhead's going to be lower. You're going to make more profit, but don't bring the price of the market down. All right, I think we're up on time. I'll take one more question if we have it.
Yep, and the last question is, so you should start your business with a profitability mindset, question mark.
Yes, assuming you're in business for profit, which most entrepreneurs are. I know we have different motivations for that profit. Even if you are a nonprofit, so to speak, odds are money is important, so you can support whatever cause that you are affiliated with. So absolutely, in my mind, you definitely want to make sure you're turning a profit on all the work you do. Otherwise, it's not worth doing the work. So that was you got the point, right? So welcome to Heat Press for Profit. You guys are going to have such a great time today. I'll be tuning into most of the sessions, helping with chat. I'll also be available over in the forum and giving a spirit sale class and in the Q&A tomorrow night. So make sure you take a little break, look at your notes, underline the things that are important to you, and approach next session with Jenna with a clear understanding about who your customer is. Thanks so much, and we'll talk more soon.